Hello.
Can you hear and see me now?
Yeah, see you. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, man. How's it going?
Hi, Dave. I'm Gary. Pleased to meet you. Thank you for joining us.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Oh, I certainly been having a little read or two about you and some amazing things you've been up to.
Oh, yeah. Pretty busy guy.
Yeah. What time are you on over there?
Eastern.
All right, okay. We're at 2 a.m. in the UK.
Oh, wow.
How's things? How are you doing?
Good, man. I'm actually at a haunted location on an investigation right now, the infamous Belair House in Belair, Ohio.
Oh, tell me more. Tell me more.
We're here with some folks streaming a live investigation. I'm here with Sean Austin, the owner, Kristen Lee. The Spirit Realm Network is broadcasting live investigation here. And we're going to have Eric Connor come in here in a little bit. And it's going to be awesome. We're here for 7 days. So
excellent. So you'll get into in depth in that investigation as well.
absolutely.
Just been picking up on a few things. Could you, for the folks that over this side of the water that may not know you, could you introduce yourself for us?
Yeah, my name's Dave. Yeah, my name's Dave Spinks. I've been investigating all aspects of the paranormal, from UFOs, cryptids, and hauntings for over 30 years now. I'm an ex-military, U.S. Air Force. I'm a retired federal law enforcement officer of 20 years in government service, and I've been investigating this stuff since I was a 13-year-old boy. And once I retired from law enforcement, I decided to go full time and public with what I've been doing all these years. You may have seen me on numerous TV shows to include The Unexplained on History Channel, In Search of Monsters on Travel Channel, Ghost Nation on Travel Channel. Let's see, These Woods Are Haunted on Travel Channel, and Paranormal 911 on Travel Channel. I'm also featured in a movie called The Flatwoods Monster: A Legacy of Fear by Small Town Monsters, and another Flatwoods movie that will be out shortly.
That's excellent.
I'm also an author. I've written several books on various genres of the paranormal, and I have more coming out.
So certainly been doing it for 30 years, which takes you back from like 1990 onwards. And I've seen a few things there as well around the Willows Weeps and stuff like that as well. And I know you're the owner.
I also own my own haunted location that I use primarily. Having done this for so long, and the opportunity came to me, I ended up buying the Willows Weep house to have my own paranormal laboratory, so to speak, where I can go at any time and investigate and try to document paranormal evidence.
There's certainly some of the stuff. I mean, from going from like a law enforcement officer and obviously working for the US Air Force and all that as well. As soon as I seen like US Air Force, I was like, you must have seen some really bizarre places out there, getting out and about. That's right up your street and up your field with some of these older places you would have had the bases.
Yeah, I mean, my stepdad was in the Air Force too, so I grew up on Air Force bases. So for most of my young life, I was on an Air Force base, or myself being deployed around the world. I've seen some pretty strange things in the sky that I couldn't explain as well. I also research and investigate reports of UFO sightings and abductions and the whole 9 yards. So, all of it to me is interlinked in one way or another, and I think it's fascinating stuff. To me, it's some of man's greatest questions. What happens to us when we die? Are we alone in the universe, and do strange unknown creatures walk among us? Those are some of man's greatest questions that are as of yet to be really unanswered. But we do know we have all kinds of things that are unexplained around us at all the time. So, it's fascinating stuff to me. That's why I do it.
It's certainly, and you've investigated hundreds of places over there in the USA. Do you go further afield? Do you go into other other countries and that as well?
Yeah, I have done some limited stuff when I was stationed. I was stationed in Italy for almost 5 years, And I was able to. I only lived about 30 minutes from Venice, one of the oldest cities in the world. You know, that's still an active city, and I captured many EVPs in Italian and Latin there. And I was, you know, I used to walk the streets at Venice at night and getting EVPs. You know, I investigated a place called San Lucido Monastery in Italy too. That dates back to the 1500s. It's now abandoned, or at least it was when I was over there. It was abandoned, grown up. You know, I captured some weird chanting in there and some other things. Two of the guys that were with me were military police buddies of mine. They took off running and left me there by myself because they didn't, you know, they weren't interested in what I was doing. They just came with me because they were curious, and it scared them so bad they left and ran to the car and left me there. So, you know, I also did an abandoned cotton mill in Italy and some other places. And I've been to Mexico many times and investigated some things there way back in my younger days. But, you know, that was just in my fledgling years. I was still learning how to do EVPs and you know, didn't really know what I was doing, because we would often go on family vacations, and you know, I would utilize that to try to capture different things. We would, you know, one of my first EVP I ever captured was at Mesa Verde in Colorado, and we know about the Anastasi people and stuff, and we happened to be there. There was no one there at all, just me and my family, and I actually captured some chanting and Native American drums. My very first EVP when I was a kid, so I was pretty excited about that.
Also, as well, there where you say you captured, I've been quite close to Venice in the past. There was, I think I went up to Lake Garda. I can't remember the name of the airport. We actually went there. Did you manage to try and get the EVPs translated, or anybody help you out with that information?
The one EVP that I had an Italian guy listen to who spoke fluent Latin. He told me it was definitely Latin, and it was someone was praying. So I thought that was very interesting, especially when, you know, I captured it very near San Marco Square, near the famous church there. And the other stuff, they said they couldn't make out what it was saying as far as the chanting I captured in the monastery. So, you know, but it was definitely voices that came from somewhere, from not a living person, you know. So it's pretty interesting stuff.
I mean, also as well, you know, I've been doing some reading up on you, and I'm just like, wow, tell me more about yourself. It's just unbelievable, like hair-raising things that you've come across. Could you give us a few examples of what you've actually experienced in this hair-raising situations?
Oh, well, you know, you can imagine after doing this for so many years and how many locations I've been to, you're bound to run into some pretty unnerving situations. And I've had many that I just, you know, blew my mind. Like there was this one case me and my buddy David Weatherly did. We were in this old brothel that was ran by the Chicago mob way back when. And he was running a ghost box, and I was filming him doing it. And I went in there to take a static meter and set on the floor next to him so I could film to see if we would capture anything manipulating the static meter while he was conducting this session. And when I bent over to set that piece of equipment on the ground, I felt this wave of energy go right through me, and it really like knocked me for a loop. And I got really dizzy. I felt nauseous. And he's like, what happened? And I told him, I said, I don't know, man. And I actually stumbled backwards, like almost passed out. I saw tunnel vision. He's like, you better sit down. So I went back behind the camera and I sat down and kept filming him. The whole time I was feeling like a cobweb sensation on the top of my head. So I kept like wiping it off. You know, if you ever went into a dark, dank basement and the cobwebs and they get on you, that's what it felt like. Well, after several minutes, he's conducting this session, and the session got really negative. It was talking about, you know, it was going to kill me, you pig. Well, being ex-law enforcement, we're obviously dealing with an intelligent spirit here because it knew I was law enforcement, and it's getting real vile, real negative. And he said, what did you do to Dave? He said, I hit him. And this really evil laugh came after that. This was coming out of a ghost box, mind you. And it says, yeah. I hit him, just like that. And they're like, what? You know, and he said, well, what'd you hit him with? And he said, a shovel. Well, that's one thing, right? So It keeps going on, it gets more and more negative. He shuts the ghost box down. And we had a little public event at this location, and we had like 20 people downstairs watching this live feed we were doing of this. I walk downstairs and I feel the cobweb sensation on my head as I sit down, and I went like that, and my hand was full of blood, and I had a big knot and a gash on my head. This came out of nowhere. And when you realize the spirit actually told us what it did to me, it left physical marks on me. I was bleeding and had a little gash on my head and a knot. And he said he hit me with a shovel. So it was very, very unnerving to realize that some of these entities, some of these spirits are strong enough to punch through to our reality and physically harm you. And that's just one instance of several that I've had over my time. I've been scratched. You know, I had a blood vessel explode in one of my eyes on an investigation.
I've seen that, yeah.
Yeah, and I've never had any, no reason. I mean, there was never no physical problems with my eyes or anything. And just I've had numerous experiences, to say the least. I've smelt. I heard one time in my house after an investigation, I'm sitting on the couch and I hear a pop sound in my house. Sounds like a light bulb popping. You know, when they blow up and they go out sometimes. So I searched the entire house trying to find out what light popped. Can't find any. All the lights work and everything. Then I start smelling this really gross sulfur smell. Smells like feces, basically, you know.
Yeah.
So, and that's when that night at some point the blood vessel in my eye exploded. And it was right after a very dark location we had investigated. I had just gotten home. I had sat down to relax, and that's when all that had transpired. So, after that happened, I had the worst year of my life. Found out I had cancer in my leg. I had all this stuff going on. I was having these nightmares of these black arms coming out of this darkness, trying to grab me. And every night I would have this recurring dream every night, and every night they would get a little closer. Well, finally, what capped it all off was on the last night, one of them grabbed my shoulder, and I woke up in the dream and I had a tear in my shirt and a scratch on my arm. And that's when I knew that I had an attachment and I had to go get cleansed. And I went and got cleansed and blessed by 3 different clergy, a shaman, a Catholic priest, and a Baptist minister. And overnight, everything seemed to turn around, so I knew I had an attachment at this point. And, and I almost went financially ruined. I had a whole bunch of bad stuff just happen overnight. And this went on for almost a year. I figured it out. Hey, I might have an attachment. And I went and got it taken care of. And sure enough, overnight, everything went back to normal. So, I try to tell folks this stuff is not fun and games. This stuff can be dangerous.
It's knowing the danger, isn't it?
Yes, definitely. Yeah, also, so you have to, it's very crazy.
So also with the signs and all that, again, you have certain things where you balance and cleanse and all that as well. Sometimes we'll carry holy water as well. And again, did anybody put you in the direction of that prior to that, or was it just?
I came at this after my professional life as a law enforcement officer. I've had things happen to me as a child that I knew were real and everything else, but you still approach it as a skeptic. You try to debunk everything and whatnot, but there's some things we just can't debunk. Let's face it. There's stuff out there that's unknown. We don't know what we're doing. We don't know anything about it. And things happen. I know personal friends and other folks that have, some really bad things have happened to people. People have committed suicide because they have captured, had an attachment that manipulated them to this point where they've committed suicide. Being in law enforcement, I've seen criminals that you can look in their eyes and tell there's no soul in there. It's a hollow shell, and they're not human. They're being manipulated by something else. If you read some of the stuff they have done to people, it's not, they have no conscience. They have nothing. They're being manipulated, and you can tell. You can just tell. And having done the paranormal for so long, you kind of become more in tune with these type of things, and you can see these people and you look in their eyes and it's not human. It's just not human.
Well, you touched on there as well, back from a youngster. What was your experiences of a youngster? I mean, when you mentioned like sulfur smell, to me, I would put my guard up then usually with that. You know something's getting weighted or suppressive. Again, so you get used to it as you're investigating out there. Is there anything that, on the experience side of it from a youngster as well? What was your earliest experience?
From what, sir? I couldn't hear you.
As you was when you was a youngster, going back, what was your first experience?
Well, my first experience, believe it or not, as a young man was I had a Bigfoot encounter. That's what changed my life. Me and my grandfather here in my home state of West Virginia, we would go on fishing trips together in the summers and whatnot. And we were at one of our favorite places on the Gauley River. Had caught a bunch of fish, cooked them up. It was just before dark at this point, and we began hearing these giant splashes out in the river. We can't see what's causing the first one. We jump up. We're like, "What was that?" You know. And I'm talking splashes where the water rains down. I mean, such a loud, big splash. So after several minutes of trying to figure out what caused this splash, we kind of sat down and got relaxed again. And then I heard a noise coming from my left of what sounded like something breaking through the tree branches. And this is on the other side of the river, mind you, about 60 to 75 yards across. And I look out at my peripheral and I see a rock bigger than a grown man could put his arms around, flying upwards through the trees and come out into the river and make another big giant splash. Of course, we jump up and we're like, what in the world was that? And my grandfather, you know, here's a man who was a Baptist minister for over 40 years. He was a World War II veteran, stormed the beaches at Normandy. Nothing scared this man.
Yeah.
He starts yelling across the river saying, "You hoodlums, knock it off," you know, this and that. And he runs back to the tent and gets his shotgun because he's thinking it's people at this point messing with us. And I'm thinking there's no way a man could have thrown a rock that big, that far, and that, you know, with that trajectory. And I'm just standing there, and then I'm looking at him, and then that's when you hear the most god-awful scream and howl sound come from that side of the river that you can even imagine. I mean, it still sends shivers down my spine to this day when I think back on it. And it echoed down through the valley there, in the river valley, like you would not believe. It's like when you go to a concert, you can feel the bass drum in your stomach. That's what it felt like. It was that powerful and that loud. Well, as the scream happened, of course, my grandfather, he cracks off a shot across the river, and he's only got an old single shot gun, you know, shotgun with a squirrel round in it. It's not going to do anything, nothing at that distance. Then that thing lets out another howl, and it just starts shaking trees, tearing the woods down over there. Well, at this point, we still can't see what is making the sound or doing that. So he yells at me, "Go get to the truck, boy." So I run. We had his pickup truck was parked about 20, 30 yards from us. I run to the truck, and I'm cowering down around the front bumper looking in that direction. He cracks off. It must have been 3 or 4 more shots. The whole time this thing's just screaming and shaking these huge trees, like 40, 50, 60, maybe even bigger trees, shaking them. And the thing starts moving up and away from us because you can trace it by the movement of the brush and the trees shaking. Well, as I'm peeking around the front bumper of the truck looking in that direction, there's a clearing. And that's when I see it. I saw it from about the waist up, covered in dark brownish, blackish hair, had some red looking tinge to it. But this thing was massive, had a little bitty head, no neck, and it was twice as wide as my grandfather. And my grandfather was like 6'4". He was a very big man, and it punied him. I mean, it made him look like a child. And I never saw its face or its hands. It was walking up and away from us, just raising Cain, tearing the woods down. Well, about that time, my grandfather, he must have seen it too, because he came running, picks me up with one arm, slings me through the truck cab. The only thing that stops me is the passenger side door, because he threw me completely through the truck cab, jumped in there, said, "That's not of God, son. We're getting out of here." We tear out through the woods, and this is like a 3-4 mile dirt road that's full of potholes. And I mean, he's bottoming the truck out, you know, and I got my head buried in my hands because I'm scared. I'm like, he's going to break the truck down. This thing's going to kill us. It's going to catch up to us and kill us. We finally get out of there onto the hard road, and we drive around. He's not saying a word for like a half an hour or so. He pulls off. And that's when we kind of made this pact that we wouldn't tell anybody what happened, because number one, they're going to think we're crazy, and he's a preacher, and he's going to, he's got a whole congregation he has to answer to. And he's like, they're going to think we're crazy, or I'm on drugs or drinking beer or whatever. And I never told anybody about that. And that's really what started me in this. I mean, I didn't go in the woods for like 6 or 7 years after this. And I grew up in the woods, hunting, fishing, and so it's been about 3-4 years ago now that he died. And, having been in the paranormal field and becoming pretty well known in the field now, everybody would ask me what started me in the paranormal. So I said, I got to start telling the truth and what happened to me and what started me. So I called my uncle up, and I said, because I wanted what's left of my family to know what I was going to be talking about. And I wanted to know it really happened to us. And this is like, a long time after he died. And so I told my uncle the story, and he goes, "Oh, you're talking about that monkey man you and Papa saw in the woods." And I'm like, "What? Wait a minute. He told you?" And he said, "Yeah, he told me that story like 20 years ago, because he said, he wanted someone to know about it in case something happened to him other than me and him." And I'm like, "You got to be kidding me. I kept that secret for all these years because I made a promise, and he told you." And we got a big laugh out of it, but at the same time, I was kind of aggravated, because, man, I was like, and so, that's what really started me off. And back then we didn't have the internet, so you couldn't research as easy as you can today. And I had to rely on the libraries, the public libraries and the school library. And I would slowly but surely, I started coming across articles. I didn't even know about the Patterson-Gimlin film at this point. This happened in 1983. And then I was like, holy crap, people are seeing this thing all around the world. I'm not nuts. I saw what I saw, and it's real, and this and that, because, when you experience something like that, you kind of put it in the back of your mind, like, man, I don't know if that was real or what happened to me. And you kind of forget about it, so on and so forth. So a lot of people will put that in the back of their mind. And I never did. I wanted answers as to what I saw. I wanted more. I was like, man, this stuff is real. There's unknown things all around us. And when you talk about cryptozoology, they thought the giant squid was a mythical creature, and lo and behold, they found those Japanese fishermen got a live body one, and we know it's not real. We're talking creatures that are 60, 70, 80 foot or bigger in length that probably did kill sailors and stuff on the old ships and whatnot back in the old days. So, and they're constantly finding new species on this planet almost daily. It wasn't only 50 years ago they discovered the mountain gorilla was real. 2017, they discovered a brand new species of orangutan in Sumatra that they never knew about. So, this stuff is real. I mean, there's stuff out there we just don't know about. Our oceans are vastly unexplored. I mean, who knows what lurks in the bottom of the oceans on this planet? I mean, so, it's fascinating stuff.
It's certainly, when you had that experience, it just sounded like it was a full get in the truck and slam you in there and get away as quick as you can. As I'm listening to you talk, I'm actually seeing 3 or 4 shadows going on in and around the background there, around about 25 minutes on this. So we'll have a little look back on that as well.
Yeah, this house is extremely haunted. I've been here many times. I had some hair-raising experiences here as well. My car, I had a really nice Challenger Super B, fast race car type car. Had it here about 3 years ago. The emergency brake was on. It was in a downhill slope right next to the house. As I'm unloading gear, another guy that was with us starts screaming, your car, your car. My car rolls backwards down the hill and smashes into a tree. Now, like, if I show you that, the car was actually setting at an angle like this, in a downward angle. Yeah. And with the emergency brake all the way down, there's no physical way it could have rolled up in a little hill, a little slope, and then back down with the emergency brake on. Because when I pulled it off the tree, I had to squeeze in between my door and the tree to get in the car, and I had to physically pop the emergency brake off to make the car move forward. And a police officer was there and said, how did that even happen? I said, we can't figure it out, sir. We don't know. This is bizarre. And I've had many crazy experiences here at this house. We captured a upper body torso on a FLIR camera here. I've lost my voice here twice for no reason whatsoever. Completely, I mean, laryngitis type where I couldn't even say anything. And many other investigators have been here at this house as well, that have had crazy people have been scratched here and numerous things. So it's definitely on the hot bucket paranormal list. If you've never been here, you should definitely come.
Well, that was one of my questions about the FLIR and the body on the image on the bed. And sometimes if somebody has been lying it down, I will just debunk first, you know. So my question to you, no one was lying on the bed prior to you putting the FLIR image on there.
Oh, you mean on my like promo video?
Yeah.
That was actually at another location. No, that was captured by pure happenstance. I had the FLIR camera and we were just walking through with my guy that was filming me, and I, kind of just panned the thing over, and there on the bed, there's a full body. Looks like a full body was just laying on the bed, and it was creepy as all get out. And there was nobody else in the house but us. And this is one of the bedrooms. There's like 8 bedrooms in this place.
We have got some people online watching us and putting a few comments on, and a lot of them are, wow, we can't believe your first experiences in that. Cheryl says, do you believe in the dog man as well?
Yeah, I do believe people have actually seen a dog man type creature. I do think some of the sightings and encounters are possibly misidentifications of a possible bear or even maybe a Bigfoot. But when someone claims that to see a creature walking on 2 legs that resembles a wolf, I mean, we have to go back to the old Wolfman legends, people getting bit by a wolf. You have to think back in the dark ages of Europe when that, it's still big where you guys are over there, the dogman type creatures. And we have some of that here in my home state of West Virginia too. There's all kinds of stories of hellhounds and devil dogs, they call them here. And there's a famous story of a hunter here that they hired, an expert marksman to go out and kill this dogman type creature that was eating everyone's livestock. And this dates back to the 1700s here on the border of what used to be is now West Virginia, but in those days it was Virginia and Maryland. And they even have a historical plaque there of this story of this hunter that came in, he tracked the creature, he shot it, the creature rolled, got up, and walked away as if it was nothing. And he got out of there as fast as he could because he couldn't believe it. And he told everyone, I shot it. He actually said he shot it 2 times and, with no effect. And, it's one of those crazy stories. So, like I said, are these things physical living beings or are they supernatural in nature? We don't know. But when you shoot something twice and you're talking to a guy who is hired to do these type of things, he has no reason to lie because that hurts his reputation as well. Saying he shot the creature twice, didn't kill it, and it walked away or ran away. He's like, I don't know what it was. It was, to him, in his eyes, it was some type of supernatural creature that really scared him, and that's it. He's out of there. Gave him their money back and left.
Well, certainly if he claims he's had 2 hits on it, you would expect some type of injury or impact or blood left around or something like that as well. Touching back on the Willow Weeps, which you actually own, I'm intrigued. Can you tell me a little bit more about the Native American connection around that area or on the land?
That area, during the French and Indian Wars was real big. General Lafayette's people, his troops were in there, and it was French settled in those days. And the locals there find when they dig pottery, when they dig their gardens and stuff, they find Native American pottery, arrowheads. And the county has a really weird shape to it because it's said by the old timers, and it says right in the historical documents that they made the Native Americans and the French made a peace deal. And how they did it was the chief of the tribe stuck his spear in the ground, and where the sun hit, he said, this is our side and that is your side. And that's how they marked the county out. And it's still like that to this day. So you got 2 major rivers that run into that area. It was a great place to hunt and trap and everything. So needless to say, it was a Native American hotspot in those times. Thousands of people were killed in those wars, you know, natives and settlers and everything else. So it's a definitely, they had a huge war there. A lot of people died, and there's Native American mounds built around that area as well. And it's a paranormal hotspot, to say the least.
Certainly sounds like obviously major battlegrounds in the past and all that as well. Is there any burial sites close by as well? Do you know of?
Yeah, the mounds. There's some burial mounds that are just down the road a couple of miles as well too. So, you know, you've got all that history that dates back thousands of years, I'm sure, with the natives, and then you have tragic events such as the wars that happen. And you know, in my personal belief in the paranormal, when you have those type of events occur, that energy stains the very ground that they happen on, and it remains there, you know, for forever, so to speak. And you can do some things to calm it down and slow it down, but it's never going to go away because blood was spilled, and blood is a very powerful medium to carry paranormal energy, so to speak.
So you feel like even as well with the two rivers around and the height that heightens the whole activity around there as well.
Yeah, the house is fascinating because, you know, it has it has a plethora of things that we look for to when it comes to paranormal happenings to occur. So you have the rivers. We know water carries a lot of energy. You know, right in front of the house, there's a crossroads. So if you ever heard of the devil in the crossroads story, you know, you sell your soul to the devil to become famous and rich and powerful. It's got that aspect. It's got the the Native American aspect. Native Americans, when they have tribal hunting grounds and special places, they're full of energy. So when you have the house, and also in recent times, we discovered that the house was built by Freemasons for a Mason. It's built in the shape of a cross. Some say it's an upside down cross because it faces east, but it doesn't. That's all in your personal opinion because it depends which way you look at the house from the air. If you look at you can see satellite photos, you can see pictures I've taken with drones. It's definitely a cross. The side little overhang was added on years later, but the original house is in the shape of a cross. It's full of Freemason symbology. There's three-sided triangles built into the inside structure of the house. There was 4 entrances and exits in the house, which is very bizarre. It's almost as if it was built to funnel energy in and out. Underneath the house, excuse me, I got a drink of water. Underneath the house,
you're doing really well.
Underneath the house, you have we discovered there's a fire pit under the house in the crawl space. Now, who would be burning anything under their house? First of all, in the house, and it's surrounded by granite rocks, just like you would see at a campfire, and there's ash in it. Also, I haven't verified this yet to this extent, but one of the maintenance man the woman that used to own the house hired to go under the house and check the pipes for the water and the sewer and everything had to crawl. You have to crawl down there. It's a very small, tight space. He crawled down there. There's weird mounds of dirt. He pushed the dirt away and out pops a bone. So he grabs the bone and he crawls out of there, takes it to her. And before he crawls out of the house, he claims that he was attacked in a sexual manner by an unseen force. And he said he had to fight with everything he had to get out of there. Once he got out of there, he takes the bone out to the owner and says, I'm never going under that effing house again. Because what happened to him, she doesn't know what to do. So she takes the bone to a local country doctor there. He examines the bone and said it's definitely a child's arm bone, but it looks really old. And she didn't. So he said, let me call the sheriff, see what they say. Supposedly, I can't confirm this at this point yet. So the sheriff said, well, if the doctor says it looks very old, it may be an old burial site of some sort, just either get rid of it or put it back. They didn't even come out and do an investigation, which I find that very unusual, but so she just took it back and put it back under the house. Now, I haven't got under there in a while, and that was going to be my next phase. I'm going to try to uncover to see if there is indeed either someone that was murdered and buried under the house, or if it's maybe they built the house on an old graveyard or a gravesite. I don't know. Could be Native American. We don't know. So that's another aspect. Many investigators before me at the house have claimed that they believe there's a portal there. Even on the door frames on the trim. It's in. I had a 32nd degree Freemason tell me it is definitely Freemason symbology. It is the temple. Carved into the trim are the symbols of Solomon's temple. So, you know, there was something that went on there, and we can't. He even has looked it up to see if there is any, if it was like a known lodge or a church or a Masonic lodge. There's no records of it anywhere. So more than likely, it was either built like that for the Mason, that the first owner of the house, or it was a secret lodge of some sort. So it's very bizarre, very bizarre.
Very bizarre as well. What intrigues me as well, can you enlighten us on the strange book that was found buried between the old floor and the modern floor, possibly around any cult figures, or there was numerology in it?
Well, okay, what it is it's a pamphlet, okay, and it says on the front, is the spirit world real? And it has an upside down pentagram surrounded in a ring of fire, and it's supposedly put out by the quotation mark Church of God. Now, if you know anything about Christians, the Christian church would never print a book such as that in the first place about spirits and is the spirit world real. But how it all transpired was the former owner, when she bought it for her son to have a cheap place to start his life off, and they were gonna remodel it and give him a place to start his family and his life and everything. Well, as they're remodeling, they scraped up the new laminate flooring because it was had gotten moisture and it was hooved up, so they had to get rid of it. Underneath of that was the original 1890s floor, still there today. In one corner of the floor, between the new floor and the old floor, this pamphlet was found. This pamphlet was printed sometime in the 1980s. I think it was 1985. So obviously, and what the pamphlet talks about is necromancy, how to summon spirits, and everything else. It's definitely not a Christian printed pamphlet because it's telling you how to do it. Okay, it's an active spell book, so to speak, and tells you about what can happen and this and that. So it's not anything I would recognize as a true Christian organization. It's masquerading as one. It's probably some sort of cult. And this book can still be found for sale today, this pamphlet. So very bizarre. So if you put that with the weird fire pit under the house, it makes me wonder if people were doing spells at some time in this house's history. And there's a whole blocked out area of decades where I cannot find any history on this house. Who lived there? Who owned it? And I think what happened was the original family just kept it and they were renting it out to other families. Because I got a strange email one day from a man who said his grandma used to live in that house, and she would often talk about how she would set the dinner table at night for breakfast in the morning. And the old timers used to do that. They would do supper, wash the dishes, and set the table for the next day. Well, she would tell him that a lot of times when she got up the next morning, the dishes would be all over the floor and it would be in disarray. And she would talk about how a rocking chair she had in there would rock by itself all the time. So this house has a lot of history of paranormal happenings. There's also a talk of this woman who moved in with a young girl that was 5 or 6 and an older teenage son, maybe even early 20s. She went by a weird nickname. She did not have a normal name, like everyone called her by this nickname, and she just moved in there and was renting the place. Well, one day the little daughter just disappeared. Nobody knew what happened to her, and there was a search for her and everything. Nothing happened, and then sometime later they found the young man hanging in the house. He had hung himself. So I'm thinking, well, and the old woman that used to live next door, she was in her 90s, and she said her parents knew the original builders. That's how old this woman was. And I can't talk to her now because she has since passed before I bought the house, unfortunately. But that's what the former owner told me. This old woman told her when she bought the house. And I'm thinking maybe that arm bone was the little girl's. Maybe the mom killed the little girl or accidentally killed her, and they covered it up, and the son. I'm reaching out, hypothetically here, but the son knew about it, maybe felt guilty and hung himself in the house. Who knows? But that house has a history of death, history of suicides. I mean, and in my personal opinion, some of these negative demonic type entities will influence people to commit suicide.
I have a few phone calls in the past where people keep hearing voices of like drive off the bridge when they go around their local city.
Yes.
So I have had similar situations of that as well, and trying to help in situations. It's been renowned as like virtually the most evil haunted house in the USA. You've had disembodied voices and witness on that as well. You certainly had what paranormal teams have been investigated there. There's certainly been a few off the telly, hasn't there?
Yeah. Well, the only TV show it's been on is The Unexplained on History Channel. Hundreds of groups have investigated there and have captured some phenomenal evidence. If you look on my YouTube channel, you'll see a shadow figure that was captured there that will blow your mind. I've never seen anything that clear, and that it happened in broad daylight. No one was in the house, and was captured not on an investigation, just by happenstance. So, when you talk about these things, you have to sit there and you take it all into account. And I mean, I have people that want to go in the house all the time, but I feel this house is too dangerous to let a lot of people in. I only let seasoned groups in for the most part. I do not allow anyone under 18 in the house ever. And it will never be, no one will ever live in that house. I will tear it down before, if I decide to sell it, the house is going to be torn down and the property blessed. Because I believe it's an open portal, and all kinds of things come in and out of there for whatever reason.
I have actually written down portal energies in the house, and I put a question mark on it on my pad. So again, I think you've touched on that earlier on as well. Got another question there from Cheryl. She said, can you speak to the locals in and around and see if you can find out any more knowledge, basically, or information going with the past there?
Yeah, I mean, I have done that. I've talked to people that have lived there since the 1960s, and they've told me things and whatnot that have to do with some paranormal stuff. But other people have lived. Some people have claimed that they've been in the house and not experienced anything paranormal. But just because if you walk into a house and you don't experience anything paranormal doesn't mean it's not haunted. It's just you can't put these things on a timer and say, okay, this is going to happen every single time when someone walks in here. This doesn't work that way. When you're in there actually hunting or searching for paranormal evidence, the longer you spend in any location, the chances are you're going to have an experience or something to that effect. So there's some people that claim to have stayed there for a long time and never experienced anything. That's fine. It doesn't mean anything. It's just, some people are more apt to experience paranormal happenings than others as well. They're more open. They may have abilities, and sometimes spirits approach those people before they approach any other people. You just never know what you're going to get when you do this type of stuff. The last person that lived in the house, he did commit suicide. His wife also died of an overdose. She died in the house, even though the medical records say she died at a hospital. I have eyewitnesses that knew both of them, saw them wheel her out on the gurney covered up, and they were not working on her. That means she was DOA,
Yes.
But in some states, the doctors, you're not legally dead until a doctor says you are, okay? So you could be dead en route to the hospital, but technically you're not dead till the doctor pronounces you dead, okay? So that's just how it works, folks. That's a legal loophole, okay? As far as I think, the original owners both died in the house. One of them was a pedophile. That family, he was a pedophile. He and the wife that lived in my house they had been previously married, both of them. They had a bunch of kids. I think they had like 22 or 23 children together. They had some from their previous marriages, and then they had some together. Well, he was actually busted in the court, by the court for pedophile with one of his stepdaughters. So there's another possible connection. Maybe he killed one of his own kids and buried them under the house. We just don't know. There's just no records of it. But the records of him being a known pedophile are there. He was fined $700. I have all the documentation. and he's one of the nasty spirits that still lingers in the house. I've communicated with him numerous times, and so has many other investigators that have been there.
I've also noticed, picked up on basically that. Have you been investigating the house for the last 12 months?
Yeah, we were just there. I'm actually filming a documentary about the house, and had some other investigators come in and do their thing. And there's a lot of videos. Like there's a YouTube page I created called Willows Weep Official. If you go on there, you can see a lot of investigations from other investigators that I've put up there. Just look in the videos. It just has videos from numerous groups and other teams that have been in there, and you can see what they captured. You know, it's pretty crazy stuff.
And also as well, it's like unseen forces and people being attacked in there as well with other paranormal team members as well.
Yes, absolutely. And this happened, you know, a lot of people, you know, when you have a location like this, people saying, oh, you're just trying to make money off of it. Well, no, because before I ever owned it, many other teams were in there. That's one of the reasons I bought it, because so many investigators claim to have had this type of experience and that type of experience and captured this and that. So, you know, that's something you have to take a hard look at. And then you have to look at the history of the place and all the people that didn't even have anything to do with the paranormal investigative realm claiming to have things happen to them. So, you know, it is what it is. Make what you want out of it.
I know you're there at that present location at the moment for the next week. What up and coming events have you got for 2021?
Well, you know, with this COVID thing, everything's up in the air. You know, I'm just going to keep working and filming things, and you know, I have several books that should be coming out this year. On, you know, continuing series of books I'm working on, and there's some events scheduled. If Mothman Festival goes off, I'll be there September. There's several events I'm supposed to be a part of. The Gettysburg Bash in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. Last year, you know, we canceled all the events, got canceled. I mean, there was over 20 events I was going to be appearing at. But one cool thing is I'm in the works. I'm going to be opening my own paranormal store. So where people can come and get my books, and other friends of mine, paranormal, everything you can think of paranormal, from Bigfoot to hauntings to UFOs and all the merchandise you can think of related to all those things, and more. So it's going to be cool.
I know also as well, do you want to run us through some of the books you've actually got up and running at the moment, where they're available from? I know we've got the Willow Weeps and a few UFOs. Do you want to reel all them off for us as well? Because I'll certainly have a little look into that.
Yeah, absolutely. Got the West Virginia Bigfoot book, Real West Virginia UFOs, Willow's Weep, Real West Virginia Hauntings, and I've contributed to David Weatherly's book series about the Bigfoot. It's a great book series. And as well, him and Ross Allison wrote the Haunted Files of West Virginia. Really cool book. Just sharing, you know, how I write my books is my experiences, and then I interview hundreds of other eyewitnesses and different things depending what the book topic is. And I'll be continuing the West Virginia Haunting series and numerous other states as well that I've been working on based off of my investigation over 30 plus years of doing this stuff. So you'll have stories from other folks as well as me, and my investigation results and history of the locations and the whole 9 yards, as well as I got 2 new monster books going to be coming out soon as well.
That's excellent. Thank you for the insight on that as well. Is the something around the Society of the Supernatural?
Yeah, that's an organization me and several of my friends have. You know, David Weatherly, Kristen Lee, who owns this house that I'm at right now, Barry Gaunt from Kentucky, and of course the late great Rosemary Ellen Guiley was a member of that with us, and everyone knows who she is. Needs no introduction, of course. Probably, if not the most prolific paranormal author of our time, anyway. You know, written over 70 plus books on various paranormal topics. And she was a mentor and a friend of mine, you know. And Eric Altman from Pennsylvania, who's a well-known Bigfoot researcher and paranormal investigator. So, you know, that's just a group of people we came together to try to further the field. And we do stuff together when we can, along with our own personal stuff we all do as well.
Yeah, there was one question I missed there earlier on, so I'm just going to scroll back up to it if I can find it. Reva says, what do you think about, let me try and pronounce this, a chupacabra, is that?
Chupacabra?
Yeah,
chupacabra. Yeah. I mean, that's a weird cryptid dog-like creature as well. There's two different versions. There's a Puerto Rican version that it's more described as a lizard type creature, and the other one is the Texas chupacabra, which is more like resembles a mangy-looking dog type creature. Sightings go back for generations on these things from both locations, and chupacabra basically means bloodsucker. These creatures suck the blood out of animals and maybe even people. Oftentimes when there's a chupacabra outbreak, they'll find all kinds of animals drained of all their blood, weird stuff like that. So I don't know. I've really not investigated much on the chupacabra other than researched it somewhat, but it's one of those strange unknown creatures we hear about.
There's certainly a lot of, I mean, how vast is Virginia, West Virginia? How long would it take you to drive from one end of the state to the other? Just so because I've not been to the USA, you see.
Well, West Virginia is not a big state, so compared to like Texas and New Mexico and some of the western states, but it's a funny shaped state, has a big long arm. So if you drive from the farthest point to all the way across, probably about 4.5 hour drive. But other sections you can go from one end to the other, in a couple of hours. So just depends what direction you're driving from. But the thing about my home state, which I love, is it's very rural and it's covered by mountains and forests. Just around my house alone, you're talking millions of acres of just heavy, hardcore, rugged area of land. And the reason I'm putting my store right there where I live is because right down the road you have what is known as the Monongahela National Forest, and it's millions of acres of rugged terrain where people just don't go, and that's where the bulk of Bigfoot sightings come out of my home state. Really, West Virginia is like the Pacific Northwest of the East Coast. I mean, it's so rural and rugged that it's a real hot spot for all kinds of sightings of these Bigfoot type creatures and UFO sightings and everything else.
I know we're coming quite close to the end of the hour now, Dave, and I've had some really amazing insights. There's also things around the Bat Boy, the Lizard Man, the giant serpents, giant skeletons. And also as well, that people are asking for all the links for the books. We'll try and upload all that, and we'll try and get you some more windows there for you.
Go to my website. It's www.davespinks.paranormalinvestigator.com. If you want a signed copy, you can email me. If you're in the UK, you're gonna have to pay extra shipping. I'm sorry, I'll have to do each order is separate. I have to look up the posting and shipping on that. Otherwise, you can get my books off of Amazon. Okay.
And they're also ranging from about $18 to $23.
Yeah. The most expensive one right now is $20 plus shipping. Okay. So the Bigfoot book, the first Bigfoot book, is $15 plus shipping. So if you order them from Amazon, of course you won't get a signed copy from me, but if you want to sign one, you can order them directly from me. Just private message me, email me, and tell me what book you want, and I'll sign it and mail it to you. But you'll have to PayPal me the money. So yeah, that's how you can get my books. Check out my website. There's all kinds of stuff on my website. Some of it tells you about the TV shows I've appeared on, tells you about upcoming events I may have. Also, this coming year, hopefully, if everything works out, I will be coming to Italy for a 7-night or 8-night doing 7 castles investigation in Italy. And you can go to hauntedjourneys.com website if you want to book it. You can come from the UK too, folks. Come and meet me. I'll be over there, and you can investigate with me some of Ireland's most haunted castles. It's going to be a phenomenal trip.
I think we're trying to get an island little tour going as well, hopefully, as soon as we can. I've noticed another video clip which I'll try and upload as well myself and share onto one of my pages. Is the Bigfoot? I think it was 1983. Did you reenact that, or I didn't get time to watch it all, but I'll try and upload. There was about a 50-minute video.
Are you talking about the story of my Bigfoot sighting?
Yeah.
Yeah, on These Woods Are Haunted. Yeah. Well, they had me talk about it, then they recreated it. Okay. So as I tell everybody in conferences and events that I speak at around the country, there's certain parts you got to remember. TV is entertainment. Okay. And when you sign on to tell these encounters you had or investigations, you have no power. They can change things and add things, and that's just how the con. So there's a couple of things in that story that didn't happen, like when it showed me gathering firewood and you could hear the creature making noises. That didn't happen. The part in the tent did not happen. We didn't stay there. We left because it was so terrifying.
So
but
intense.
yeah, but overall, the story was told really well, and pretty much, other than those two things, pretty much how it happened. So check it out. You know, if you want the real story, read my books. That's where the real story is. So
I'll certainly watch that clip as well. So yeah. Just been really fascinating and very interesting as well. I'm just gonna, thank you for your time and thank for the people that are watching. It will get reshared and again across the network that we've got as well. Again, it's for a fantastic cause, and I think our Jolene's might just pop back in there now. And
okay, can I say one thing before we get off? Please, if you know anyone that is contemplating suicide, please give them the suicide hotline numbers. Over 20 veterans a day in the United States die of suicide. I am a veteran, so that's very near and dear to my heart. And please, if you know anyone, help them out. Get them some help. Please, let's help these folks. And I do believe some of this stuff can be paranormal related too, by the way. So please help them out the best you can.
And certainly across tonight, what we've covered already, I'm a very strong person, and I could have been in tears many, many times tonight of what I've seen and people's experiences as well. So again, I'm just going to thank you for your time.
Thanks for having me, guys. Anytime. I enjoyed it.
And thank you for being part of the festival, as you explained. Thank you.
Okay. Have a good night.
And you too. Thanks for your time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.